Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something really common, often just relentless, eczema. If you or maybe someone you know deals with it, well, you're familiar with the symptoms. That chronic itch, the redness, just feeling like your skin can't cope.
Right. But we're not just here today to list symptoms. Our mission really is to cut through that surface stuff and focus on the core physiology of eczema. It boils down to one thing: the failure of the skin's protective barrier.
Exactly. That's our focus. We want to pull out that crucial scientific link between why the barrier fails and, maybe more importantly, how knowing that dictates the absolute non-negotiables for managing it. Our sources, they're pretty clear. Understand the failure, and the solution becomes, well, obvious, almost required.
Yeah, we're basically laying out the science behind why your daily skincare isn't just cosmetic. It's really a medical intervention.
Okay, so let's unpack this, maybe starting with the basics. We talk about skin being the largest organ, but for protection, we need to zoom in, right, to that outermost layer.
That's it, the stratum corneum. It's microscopically thin, but it's the key defense layer.
And what's its job description? When it's healthy, what's it supposed to be doing?
Well, it's quite an amazing piece of biological engineering. Think of it like a really well-built wall. The sources often use that brick and mortar analogy. Skin cells are the bricks,
Mm.
and then you have this complex mix of lipids, fatty acids, cholesterol, ceramides. That's the mortar holding it all tight.
Okay, a wall. And that structure, it has, what, four key jobs that keep us healthy? The first couple seem pretty straightforward, the physical protection part.
Right. Job number one is containment, keeping essential moisture in. If that layer is working properly, your skin stays hydrated, it stays elastic, it stops you from just, drying out constantly.
Like when you shower or just walk outside, keeps the inside world in.
Exactly.
Which means it also has to keep the outside world out. That's job number two, right? Keeping irritants, allergens, that kind of stuff away.
It's the gatekeeper function. It stops all those environmental attackers: pollen, dust mites, harsh soap chemicals, pet dander, you name it. It prevents them from getting into the deeper, living, very sensitive skin layers.
Where they'd trigger an immune response.
Precisely, where the trouble really starts.
So beyond just being a physical barrier, it's also managing the chemical environment.
Yeah, that brings us to rule number three: maintaining the right skin pH. Healthy skin is slightly acidic, and that acidity is critical. It helps activate enzymes that repair the barrier itself, and it helps fight off certain kinds of bacteria. If the pH is off, the whole system starts to struggle.
Okay, I see. Which leads straight into the fourth role then, protecting against infections, bacteria, viruses.
Directly. When you look at all four, locking in moisture, blocking irritants, balancing pH, and protecting from pathogens, you see this isn't just about skin looking smooth. That barrier is a vital part of our immune system.
It's a really complex defense system, not just a surface layer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that complexity, that's why digging into eczema is so important. Because with eczema, that whole system just goes sideways. Fundamentally wrong.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for anyone listening who suffers from this. We're moving past just dry skin and talking about actual structural failure. What exactly breaks down in that brick and mortar wall when someone has eczema?
Well, what's fascinating and often frustrating is that the failure can be sort of genetically programmed.
Mm.
Our sources point strongly towards genetic factors, especially mutations in a protein called filaggrin. Filaggrin is absolutely essential for building a strong barrier. If that protein is flawed, the skin cells, the bricks, they just don't pack together tightly. And crucially, they don't produce enough of the skin's own natural moisturizing factors.
So it's not just like poor upkeep. The actual building materials are faulty from the start. The wall's just inherently weak.
That's a good way to put it. And if the bricks are weak, the mortar, those crucial lipids, the ceramides and fatty acids sealing the gaps, often isn't sufficient, or it's not formed correctly either. So the skin goes from being this watertight, airtight wall to something more like a leaky sieve.
A leaky sieve.
And that structural breakdown leads to four really predictable consequences. These basically define the experience of having eczema.
Right, let's connect those failures directly to what people feel. The first one you mentioned is permeability.
Yes, the skin becomes hyperpermeable. Because that lipid mortar structure is failing, rule number one, keeping moisture in, is immediately compromised. Moisture just escapes way too easily. That's the constant nagging dryness, the tightness, the flaking that feels like no lotion can truly fix it.
And if moisture's getting out easily.
The door's open for things to get in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the susceptibility issue.
Exactly. The barrier breach makes the skin far more susceptible to irritants and allergens getting into those deeper layers.
Yeah.
So something that might be totally harmless to healthy skin, like a tiny bit of laundry detergent residue or a dust particle, suddenly gets through. And the immune system down there, it reacts violently. That deep, relentless inflammation, that maddening itch people experience, that's the immune system overreacting because the wall has been breached.
Wow, that must be exhausting, just living in that constant state of alert where your body is fighting everyday things that healthy skin just ignores.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it leads right into the third consequence, the risk of infection. Because the skin barrier literally has cracks and openings, those defensive roles, 3 and 4, are also shot. The skin is just inherently more prone to bacterial or viral infections. Those little cracks are perfect entry points for bacteria like Staph aureus, which is commonly found on eczema skin.
And I imagine the itching itself, that scratch itch cycle people get trapped in, probably makes it even worse, creating more openings.
Oh, absolutely. It's a terrible feedback loop. Scratching causes more damage, which lets more irritants in, which causes more itching and more potential entry points for infection. And the fourth consequence really ties it all together. Because of this constant leaking, the susceptibility to damage and inflammation, the skin is just chronically unable to maintain proper hydration levels. It perpetuates the whole cycle. Dryness, damage, inflammation, repeat.
So if you're listening and you've struggled to explain why eczema feels so awful and just keeps coming back, that's the reason. You're not fighting just a rash. You're dealing with this four-part breakdown of your body's main biological shield.
In understanding that failure knowing the skin is basically a leaky, porous membrane.
Yeah.
That's the key. That unlocks how we manage it effectively. We shift focus from just trying to stop the inflammation to actually try to, well, fix the wall, or at least patch it up.
Right. Which brings us to the payoff, the practical part. If the natural barrier is broken, then the only real management strategy has to be artificially replacing it or at least supporting it through daily care. This is where moisturizing stops being just, a nice thing to do and becomes actual therapeutic medicine.
That's such a crucial distinction. We're not just using moisturizer to make skin feel softer for a bit. We are applying an artificial stratum corneum. We're putting back those essential lipids, the ceramides, the fatty acids that the skin can't make enough of or make properly because of those underlying, often genetic issues. The moisturizer is essentially replacement mortar for that leaky wall.
Okay, but the sources, they give us this instruction that's, well, it's surprisingly specific, almost startlingly so. An actionable tip that comes directly from the physics how water leaves the skin. It's about when you apply the moisturizer.
Yes. This is the critical instruction. And honestly, it's one that every single person dealing with eczema needs to follow religiously. Moisturizers must be applied within 3 minutes of bathing or showering. And that time limit, it's not arbitrary, it's non-negotiable science.
3 minutes? Wow, that's a really tight window. Why the rush? Why can't I just wait 10, 15 minutes until I'm dry and dressed?
It goes right back to that leaky sieve idea. When you bathe or shower, water does get absorbed into the very top layers of your skin. Now, in healthy skin, the intact barrier traps that water inside. Happy days. But if your skin is that compromised, porous membrane, that water starts evaporating almost immediately. We call it transepidermal water loss, or TEWL. And here's the real kicker. As that surface water evaporates, it actually pulls more moisture out from the slightly deeper layers of the skin along with it.
Oh, wow. So bathing, what you think is hydrating, could actually make things worse if you don't seal the barrier straight away. You briefly wet the surface, but then it evaporates and pulls even more moisture out from underneath.
That's exactly it. If you wait 5 minutes, 10 minutes, most of that beneficial water you just absorbed is gone. Worse, you've actually helped to dry your skin out even more. But by applying that thick, occlusive moisturizer, something designed to form a barrier within those 3 minutes, you're effectively slapping a seal over that leaky sieve while it's still damp. You trap the water that was just absorbed, maximizing the hydration level you could achieve.
That makes perfect sense. You're using the moisturizer not necessarily to add water back to dry skin, but to lock in the water that's already there on damp skin. That specific timing changes it from just a lotion to an actual barrier sealant.
And that is the deep dive connection we were talking about, isn't it? The solution, this is a specific type of product, applied within a very specific 180-second window, is completely dictated by the mechanism of the failure. Compromised lipids, rapid water evaporation, chronic permeability, it all fits.
So what does this all mean for you, listening right now?
I think the core takeaway is that eczema is really a disorder of containment. Your skin barrier just can't hold things in or keep things out properly. The key to managing it effectively is understanding that compromised stratum corneum and your daily care. It needs to be laser focused on making up for that deficiency.
Yeah, the science understanding flawed proteins like filaggrin, the leaky lipid matrix, it translates directly into a simple but potentially life-altering instruction. Get
Yeah.
that barrier cream on fast right after getting wet. It validates the frustration you might feel, but it also empowers you, gives you the precise knowledge to fight back effectively.
That's a really profound thought to end on, actually.
Yeah.
We've seen how complex biology, basically the physics of evaporation applied to a genetically weakened skin barrier, boils down to a single, simple, actionable habit. It does make you wonder, doesn't it? How many other small, maybe seemingly mundane daily routines, things we might get lazy about, are actually rooted in some deep, observable physiological truth? We often dismiss the simple instructions, but for eczema and that 3-minute rule, that simple act really is the primary line of defense. It's putting the science into action.